And a pleasant good evening to you and yours, and welcome to the Brevard Sports Network. Alan Slaughtersinski joining you from the Spring Break Melbourne studios. Right above my head, you see it? Is the March Madness sign I got out of the Florida Gators locker room back in 2018 when they were over Orlando. It's seen better days, but it's got another year. And tonight, I bring on someone that, in my world, and if you've ever met him, yours as well, that knows more about the game of college, but he has forgotten more about the game of college basketball and professional basketball as well than any of us. And it is always a great conversation to talk to Billy Mims. He stepped down on Friday after a 2-decade run at Florida Tech. Throughout his magnificent career, he is the winningest head coach at Florida Tech. And if you take a look on your screen, I'm going to ask Coach about this. I know it's 273 at FIT, but I think he's just 9 wins short of 700. We're going to talk to him about that coming up as well throughout his career. But it gives me a great deal of honor to bring on a guy that I have done countless interviews with, hosted several shows with. Please help me welcome back to the Brevard Sports Network airwaves a guy that's a legend to me and to many in the basketball world, Billy Mims. Coach, how are you, my friend?
Well, thank you very much, Alan. I appreciate the great introduction. Probably the only better introduction I've ever had in my life than that was when I introduced myself to somewhere sometime. That was a tremendous introduction. Um, that was a joke, by the
I
way.
know, I know. Yeah. Coach, you're beautiful Monk's Corner, South Carolina. I'm familiar with Monk's Corner down there in that Georgetown, that whole southeastern corner of the beautiful state of South Carolina. Tell your parents and your beautiful wife Lynn we said hello and thank you for your time this evening. Let's get right into it. 2 decades, man. Long time. Take us through this process and, why was now the time to step down?
Well, in all honesty, you know, it, it, 20 years has been amazing. It's been amazing, and I'm, I'm I'm so lucky, so honored, so privileged to have had the opportunity to coach wonderful. When people look at coach, a lot of times all they Allen are wins and losses. I never really focus on the wins and losses. To be honest, more than anything, I focus on the relationships, the young people that I had the opportunity to coach, the lives I've affected by helping those young people get a college education, go on to being a professional basketball player, maybe somewhere around the world. I think at one point we had 18 of our former Florida Tech Panthers playing pro basketball somewhere around the world. Um, I've got kids that have gone on who played for me to be doctors. Justin Byer, one of our former Panthers, is now an emergency room doctor over in the Orlando hospital. And you talk about an important job. Every day he's saving lives in the emergency room when people face, you know, much tougher situations and decisions than I ever had to face as a college basketball coach. He's saving lives. We've got another young man, Isaac Spence, who's now out in Colorado, but he's a rocket scientist. He's doing things that possibly one day will be on Mars. And Niall Harris, who just recently played for us, is
Love
fin-
Miles.
he's finishing his PhD at Florida Tech. Sam Daniel, you remember Sam Daniel?
Love Sam. Agent Zero, I called him.
Hero, well done. Well, Sam, I don't know if you remember or know, but he's been playing professional basketball ever since he graduated from Florida Tech. And last year, Sam became the first Florida Tech Panther in the history of our program to win the NBA G League championship. He's got a big, beautiful NBA championship ring. He played for the OKC Blue, who are the NBA G League affiliate of the OKC Thunder. The Thunder are doing pretty good themselves right now, but last year Sam was proud and honored to win the NBA G League championship as a member of the OKC Blue. Chris Carter, another one of our all-time greats, left-hand point guard, All-American for us. Chris has been playing pro basketball in Germany now for, maybe 6-7 years. He's one of the finest guards in the top league in Germany, and he wrote a book. How about this? So I've even got a player who's an author, Alan. Chris wrote a book called Ivy about a 12-year-old girl who's mixed race. She's living in a foreign country and she's struggling with all types of life's challenges and situations and issues. And she's using basketball to help her get through. He wrote that book in both German and English. And he
Wow.
did were all over Germany on all the like Good Morning Germany TV shows. So not only is he a great basketball player, but he's an author now and wrote a really incredible children's book.
Chris also has the fame in Brevard County of having the best cheeseburger ever made in Brevard County, named after him by Josh Denton at Old School Pizza.
Oh, legendary. And you bring up, there's so many great memories from my 2 decades, Alan. But Josh Denton and Old School Pizza will always be one of the most of those memories. You and I used
Yes.
to show live from Old School Pizza, and we broadcast it all over the world on the internet. And Josh was an incredible fan of our Florida Tech program. He supported our players. He was always there for them. And again, sadly, Old School Pizza doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So, yes, like my 20-year stint, nothing lasts forever.
Coach, it's funny, those memories at Old School Pizza are great. I can remember going in there sometimes on a Friday and Saturday night, especially Saturday nights after they had just won, down at the Clemente Center, and thinking, my God, if Billy walked in here right now. Sorry, Coach. I used to start laughing, man. I used to love, your players that would come down there and cut off a little steam. It was
Yep.
just a great, great time. But, Coach, I just want to say this because I think this is important. What we didn't we didn't get down there nearly as much as we ever wanted to. Obviously, youth and prep sports, and I know a lot of the media in this town feel this way. But I'm going to tell you this: your contributions to basketball in Brevard County and beyond, Coach, honestly beyond, because your career is a world thing. It's not. I mean, I know that the Brevard County is paradise, and I wrote that in your story the other night. Every time you refer to the Space Coast, it's paradise. I'll never forget it as long as I live. But I think the thing that people need to understand is how many lives, not just here in Brevard County, you've touched, but throughout the world. And I mean, 7 different European championships. I mean, I watched a video today again of a guy that put out a video over in London, naming you as one of the greatest basketball coaches ever in the history of professional basketball in London, in England. And, Coach, I'm curious your knowledge, and when we get to breaking down the NCAA tournament, people that don't know you are going to find out just how much you know. Coach, I mean, is there anything next for you, or are you taking some time? What's next for Billy Mims?
Well, I certainly hope there is, Alan. I'm not retirement age yet. I don't want to retire. I didn't retire. I'm pursuing other opportunities. Years I have been the face of Florida Tech basketball in this community, as you said, and
Yes.
world. Last summer I was in Lithuania. I was in London, back in England. I was in Greece. FIBA, world governing body for basketball. And, I've been running events around the world. And for years now, I've been invited to a lot of those events to conduct coaching classes and camps in conjunction with European or world championship events. And it's a blast. I mean, last summer when I was in Vilnius, Lithuania, it was the European under 18 or maybe under 20 women's basketball championship. And we watched an amazing, sat courtside, my wife and I, with one of USA basketball's finest coaches, guy that probably the most successful youth development coach in America, Don Showalter, has been a part of USA basketball's development team and coaching team, has won. You talk about John Wooden winning 10 NCAA championships. Don Showalter has won like 10 world championships with Team USA's youth development programs. And Don and I got to be close friends, but he and I were the keynote speakers during the European Women's Championship last summer in Lithuania. So I'm sitting courtside watching the national women's team of France play the national women's team of Spain. And it was just an amazing, amazing moment to watch that championship battle in Europe. I've been to the World Men's Basketball Championship in 2010. I was in Istanbul, Turkey, and I was there for the basketball senior men's world championships. So I saw Team USA's senior men's team take on Turkey in the final in Istanbul. And again, that's a team with 12 NBA players. So I've had some incredible experiences.
You took the guys over from FIT and went 4-2 in 10 games against the pros over there, didn't you?
We went to. I'm the only basketball coach. Again, proud of a few things. I'm the only coach in Florida Tech men's basketball history to win the Sunshine State Conference outright.
Outright, you won it outright,
and not tie for the title and
right?
not have also. No, we won the SSC championship. And, that year I remember we were 23-7. We were nationally ranked top 10, top 20 most of the year. We went to the NCAA South Regional in Huntsville, Alabama, and played the University of Alabama Huntsville in the second round of the NCAA tournament in front of a standing room only crowd in Huntsville, Alabama. And the legendary coach at the time, Lenny Acuff, is he's going to be in March Madness this week because he's now the head coach of Division I Lipscomb University, and they won their conference championship, and they'll be competing in March Madness Thursday or Friday of this week. I'll tell you a funny story. So Lenny told me, and he and I became great friends. We served together on the NABC, the National Association of Basketball Coaches, Division II Congress. So we served on that very important committee and met every year at the Final Four. And a few years after we played in 2012 in the NCAA tournament, Lenny's team went all the way to the semifinals in the Elite Eight. And I saw him at the Final Four, and he came over to me and he said, Coach, he said, I got to tell you two things. He said, in 2012, when we played your Florida Tech team, he said, you know what? You were the toughest team we played, the toughest game we played, all the way until we got to the national semifinal.
Wow.
And that's how I remember how tough the South Regional was that year. He said, but the second thing I want to tell you about that regional is your son, Josh, you remember he was with you and he was on the bench in we used to wear Adidas at the time.
Right.
And Adidas gave Josh a replica jersey with number 1 on it and on the back, right?
Right. I remember this jersey.
And so he would come out every night before the game and lead our team onto the court for warm-ups all season long and make the first layup in the warm-up line before our guys started warming up. So what was crazy about it was we took him with us to the NCAA tournament. And there he is, this little young elementary school kid in his replica Florida Tech uniform. And at halftime, we walked off the court into the locker room to go over our plans for the second half, right? Josh wasn't there.
Uh-oh.
Looked around, couldn't figure out where he was. I sent assistant coaches out to find him. And by that time, the half's over. We go back out and, oh, okay, he's here. He's on the bench. Lenny told me where he was. He said everywhere he walked around Huntsville, Alabama, people would walk up to him and say, Lenny, remember when we won the South Regional in 2012? And then he would go, yeah, we had a really good team that year. And they go, no. Do you remember? We want to know who that little blonde-haired kid was that was knocking down all those threes at halftime.
That's great. It's funny because Josh, it was a great highlight for me to be able to broadcast Josh winning a 3-point competition, which was phenomenal to see. Coach, I mean, obviously you're not done. Are you at 691? Is that where you are?
Yes, and I tell you, I still feel confident and certain that I will cross that 700 threshold.
Coach,
Gonna
wherever you are, I'm making a promise. I promise you, I want to be there for 700 because that's just a number, Coach, that a lot of people don't aspire to get. Never, I shouldn't say aspire, but don't get to, Coach. It just doesn't happen unless you have had the type of career that you have had. And as people were looking at your highlights on the screen there from your time overseas. Coach, I am so glad to hear that you are not done. And so let me ask you this then. The only piece of Final Four memorabilia I own, besides that sign over my head behind me, which was a first and second round souvenir given to me by a security guard out of that locker room,
hey,
you got me a Final Four program which you attend every year. Are you going to San Antonio this year?
well, two things. Number one, I'm gonna say that sign you have over the back of your head there,
Yeah,
that March Madness sign you got in Orlando from the Gators locker room.
yeah.
There's a famous sportscasting female who now lives in Fayetteville, Arkansas, that was covering that NCAA tournament
That's right.
by the name of Courtney
Courtney
Mims.
Mims. That's right. I love watching Courtney's stuff with Arkansas. It's great. So I suspect you'll have a lot to tell me about the University of Arkansas men's basketball team when we get to it. I love watching her with the football team because obviously, one of the best players to come out of Brevard County played at Arkansas for a couple of years before he transferred to South Carolina, Rocket Sanders. And
Yes.
so, yeah, it was, listen, that tournament was Courtney and Courtney more than I, absolutely killed it, man. We had such a good time, and it was so fun doing those live reports from in front of the bracket, the only bracket that the media used inside the media room where they would put the official winner up on the board. And that's where Courtney and I would do every one of our little broadcasts. That was a good time.
Well, I want to thank you for inviting her and having her with you to do that broadcast. If you remember at the time, she was a student at
Yes,
the University of Florida. She was a Gator, and she was working with ESPN Gainesville
right.
and doing sports analysis and commentary, both on the radio and on the internet up there with the University of Florida network as well. So I want to thank you for that, for having her there with you to cover her Gators. And I'll slip a little information to you right now. She's got the Gators in the Final Four and winning it all this year.
So
So
do I.
I don't know if I can go there just yet, but I will answer your other question. Yes, I will be in San Antonio, and I'm stretching my memory here. I've been to San Antonio before for the Final Four. like a couple of times. But overall, now I think this is going to be like my 30th Final Four that I've been to. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be my last, but I've certainly enjoyed it. It's been great because when you go to the Final Four, as a coach, there's every other coach in the country seems to be there, and you get to see guys that you only maybe see once a year, and it is such a great, uh, just a collection of coaches, a camaraderie, so to speak, of coaches who get a chance to see each other, congratulate each other, talk about ups and downs of your seasons, talk about the past, the future, reminisce, look forward. It is truly the NABC convention held in conjunction with the Division One Final Four is one of the greatest events on the planet.
I made you a promise one night, Coach, up at Tracy's Lounge. I think we were at having an after game adult Pepsi, and I think the promise I made you was that when you finally retired from coaching, I wanted to be the guy that put you in politics. I want to be your campaign manager. I want you to know when that day comes. Of course, well after you get over 700, that offer still stands. I'll give it all up to be your campaign manager.
Well, I appreciate that, Alan. That's a huge compliment. And, the Space Coast and Brevard County, Melbourne, Rockledge, where I've lived for the past 20 years has really been special. I joke about it and I say it's paradise. It is because it's such a lot of good people. Obviously, the weather is fantastic, but it is such a great place to raise a family.
Yeah.
That's
And you
anything
did, Coach. You raised them all here, all three.
we did. All three of our children started school in Brevard County, finished school in Brevard County, graduated high school in Brevard County. They got a great start there. And honestly, there have been times that I have taken you seriously and thought about that career in politics because simply for one reason, I would love, it would be the biggest honor of my life to be able to represent the people of such an incredible community, and that is the Space Coast of Florida and Brevard County.
I can think of a couple of seats where a guy like you, with your knowledge, integrity, could certainly be used. And I'll leave it at that right there. Um, Coach, and, before we transition here to the NCAA tournament, um, as you look back on your 20 years, obviously the 2012 Sunshine State Championship was phenomenal. But you have pointed things out to me over the years, like taking a nearly number one nationally ranked, not, well, they were number one, nearly
Yeah.
beating a number one nationally ranked team with a young Florida Tech team either last year or the year before. Some of the things, as you look back on the 20 years at Florida Tech, I guess reflecting, aside from that championship and the players that have gone on to do some great things, what are some special moments that immediately jump out to you?
Well, I mean, think about this, Alan. It's only a little over a year ago that we knocked off the defending national champion, Nova. The
Yeah,
year two won the national championship. And that year we went down, as you said, we went down to Nova
yeah,
and we took them to overtime. Well, right now, Alan, they have an, I believe, 81 or 82 game winning streak on their home court, which is the longest current winning streak in college basketball, Division One, two, or three. 81 or 82 straight home wins. And during that streak, we're the one team that came closest to beating them. They did not beat us in regulation. We took them to overtime on a Sean Halp three. We were down, shut out. And remember, this is a team that led the nation in scoring
yeah, they did.
for the last 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes of the game. They didn't score, and we went on like a 14-0 run, and it ended on an out of bounds play with just seconds left in the regulation. We were down 3, and I want to say it was 79-76. We called timeout. We got the team huddled up, and we drew up a play that was sort of our bread and butter out of bounds play at the time under the basket, and we called it one across. And it was a play designed to send our best shooter, Sean Haupt, in an opposite direction to kind of get them thinking we're going one way and go exactly in the opposite direction, sending Sean through what you call an elevator screen on the opposite side of the floor and close the door of that elevator. Once he goes through, swing the ball to him and let it fly. The play worked to absolute perfection. If we had copied it, the video of it, put it on the internet, we would have sold it and made a fortune, because moments where players executed to perfection. Sean made the shot. The elevator guy set the great screen. Session Russell made the great pass. And we were taking the best team in America. Now, that year, they went 36-0 and won the national championship. But we were the closest team to knocking them off. 1 year later, we beat them at Florida Tech, and we were 20 up on them with about 5 minutes to go in the game. The worst defeat they'd had in the past 4 years, and that we beat them at our place. The final score was 90-80. They came back late, but they still went to the national championship game and lost on a last second shot, or they would have won back-to-back national championships. So our success there was great, but when you also look back and think about it, last year, only a year ago, not this season, but the previous year, we were #1 defense in the SSC.
Wow.
And I take pride in that. And we were top 10 in the nation defensively, top 5 most of the year, but all year long, one of the nation's best defensive teams. So that was a great pride. And I'll tell you the other thing that stands out in my mind that you asked, and the reason I'll tell you is because of the NIL period and transfer portal period.
Yeah.
That's college athletics. In 2012, when we won that first ever and only to this day Sunshine State Conference regular season championship, our starting lineup that year was a group of 4 kids who came together as freshmen, and every year we had them, they got better. We won more games. They stuck it out, stayed with us. And by the time those 4 guys were seniors, we had brought in one transfer, a local transfer, to join them. And those 5, and I'll tell you right now, Julius Reed from Cocoa High School, Simon Cummings from Fort Pierce Central, Anthony Jackson from Melbourne High School and Eastern Florida State. We called him Tick. Derek Hellman from Lebanon, Ohio, and Edgar Zaglidis from Riga, Latvia. I'm going to tell you, those 5 guys came together, played better as a unit than I believe any team I've ever coached. But, Alan, they got better every single year, and their senior year was their best. They won the league. And I said something the other day, Alan, to one of our assistant coaches, that with the transfer portal the way it is today, I don't know if we'll ever see that happen again, where 4 kids come in as freshmen and stay all the way to their senior year to become champions.
You think it'll happen at Duke? Look, I'll tell you one more thing, and then I got a question for you before we get to the tournament. You got a pretty good damn coaching tree too. I mean, your coaching tree looks like an oak tree, a Maryland oak in the middle of summer, man, with branches everywhere. You just mentioned a guy like a Julius Reed who had an outstanding, successful high school career. About a guy like E.J. Murray who just won a state championship with the Palm Bay girls in his 1-3. You got a pretty damn good coaching tree too, Coach.
Well, thank you, Alan. And that's the other thing I wanted to say. We talked a lot about the relationships with players, the great kids that I've had the honor of coaching and watching them grow as young men and develop and move on to be successful in the biggest game of all.
Yeah.
We always we want you to win games, we sure do, right? But I want you to be successful in the biggest game of all, the game of life.
Right.
And our kids that have graduated from Florida Tech and moved on certainly have been successful in the game of life. And I'm very, very blessed and proud of that. But my assistant coaches as well. I mean, look at Chris Hackett, helped
Uh,
me build. Chris recruited Simon Cummings. He brought Simon into our team that year. Chris recruited Julius Reed. Um, Chris recruited Jackson. And the year that they became seniors and we won it all, Chris left to become a head coach of a junior college in Texas. And I was proud of him. I helped him get the job. And in the end, I was so sad because we won the title the very next year. And
right.
he was part of building that championship team. And now Chris is athletic director at Florida Gateway College in Lake City, Florida, quality junior college here in the state. But Chris went from being my assistant to being a junior college head coach to now being a junior college athletic director. And Joey James, who's been my assistant coach the past several years at Florida Tech, I was blessed to have Joey next to me. He was a head coach in Division One, the interim head coach at the University of South Dakota, where he played collegiately and then went on to coach. Then he left there and became the head coach at a great Division Two program up in Minnesota, Concordia St. Paul University.
Right.
He left, Alan, a head coaching position to come be my assistant coach. So that's incredible. This year on the sideline, I had Makai Noble, former player, sitting next to me. In the past, I've had Demario Robinson, former player, sitting on our bench as a coach. I've had Edgar Zaglitas as a graduate assistant coach on our bench. Ryan Ballard, another one of our former great players, as a graduate assistant on our bench. And as you said a moment ago, look at EJ Murray, who
Yeah.
just the state championship with his Palm Bay High School girls. I have been blessed to have players that love Florida Tech so much and enjoyed playing for me. They stuck around to be assistant coaches with me to get more education in the way of master's degrees. And in the way of some of them, Harry Craig is working on his PhD right now, as is Niall Harris. So uh,
Congratulations. EJ, go ahead. I'm sorry. You got anything else there?
I was just saying, to wrap that up,
Uh-huh.
I'm so blessed and so thankful for all of the great players that I've coached and the great assistant coaches that I've had sitting on the bench next to me. I mean, Joe Sanchez, for the past 3, 4 years, has been an assistant for us. Let's not leave him out.
Right.
Joe us as one of the most experienced assistant coaches in all of Division II college basketball. He was a head coach at Indian River State Junior College, but prior to that, Alan, he was the head women's coach at the United States Naval Academy in Division One, and the ACC Women's Basketball Coach of the Year as the head coach at Wake Forest.
Wow.
So I've been blessed to have so many great assistant coaches that believed in me, that wanted to work with me, and believed in the vision of trying to take a really high academic school. We're like the Ivy League school playing in the SEC. You know,
Yeah.
Florida.
And I want to talk about I want to talk about that for just a second because it's going to tie into my next point. And EJ Murray today, he was named our girls basketball coach of the year. And congratulations to our boys coach of the year, well, Logan from Vieira. Um, Coach NIL, um, colleges, Division One colleges now paying student athletes, the transfer portal. It has really changed collegiate sports. I don't even think you could honestly call it amateur sports anymore in a lot of degree, in a lot, a lot of areas. Um, and then I take a look like, and I don't want to sound like, a jerk when I say this, but, I look around the county this year in boys basketball and it wasn't great. I mean, the kids played their hearts out. The coaches coached their hearts out. We got a lot of talent that left the county. 14 of the 22 teams were 500 or below. It was a rough year for Brevard. In the first round of the FHSAA state tournament, the teams that went out in the first round all got beat by an average margin of a running clock. But coach, I think all of this ties in to what we're seeing, the transfer portal. I think it all ties in to what we're seeing from a collegiate and a high school level. What are your thoughts on this? How have you adapted through the years, and what's next?
Well, again, the game has changed a lot over the years. The kids have changed a lot over the years. I've been doing this. We talked about 2 decades at Florida Tech, but I just completed my 43rd year on the sidelines somewhere around the world. So I've been doing this for 4 decades, and I've done it here in the States and internationally. So I've had a chance to really feel the changes to the game, the changes to the kids who play the game from a global perspective. And obviously society changes, and that puts a lot of pressure on the kids to change, because I know that the pressures they're under now, Alan, with the internet and with social media, now every kid wants to go on social media and say, I'm blessed to receive an offer from this school. I see that over and over and over. I go watch a kid play a game, and the first thing they ask me after the game is, Coach, is it all right if I post on social media I got an offer from you? I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's get you to visit campus first and see how
Right.
you like it before we post about offers. But that's the pressure of social media on these kids today. And I think that's fueled NIL, that's fueled the transfer portal, because the world is watching these kids now, and the internet and their cell phones have turned these kids into mini celebrities, superstars, and they feel like you don't have to be on television anymore. You're a celebrity every time you're on the internet, on social media, on your own phone.
Amen. I mean, you don't listen. I was on with Mark Moses today. I think you were on his first episode. You don't need television anymore. As a guy like Mark enters the digital world, I've been in it for 6, 7 years. Television, who the hell watches that? I mean, it's, I told Mark, I said, look, man, you have no idea what you're about to go through and experience in a good way. And listen, but there are negative sides to it, and exactly what you're talking about is it, because these kids are posting offers that they're not legitimately getting. And I look at the quality of basketball play now, coach, and it's down. I mean, the average free throw percentage of boys basketball in Brevard County is about 54%. That's terrible.
Right.
That's a terrible
Well,
free shooting percentage.
let me throw you a couple of stats out there that kind of echo what you're saying in a sense, right? Number one, let's look at the NBA, the world's greatest basketball league, right?
Right.
Gets more exposure worldwide. The greatest players in the world are in the NBA, right? Well, when's the last time an American was crowned the NBA Player of the Year?
That's crazy because, I mean, it's been a European for what, 3, 4 years in a row now?
It's been a while because Nikola Jokic has won 3.
Right.
Uh, Joel Embiid has won 1.
Yeah.
And this year, it's going to be either Nikola Jokic again or Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and he's Canadian.
That's
So,
correct.
and the best player in the world right now over the last 5, 6 years has not been an American, and that makes a huge statement. And the other thing that gets me about these changes and how we're doing things right now is the whole mess of the transfer portal. In the next 2 weeks, there'll be over 1,000 kids in the transfer portal. And the stat that jumps out there at you is all these kids are jumping into the portal hoping for something better. And 2/3 to 3/4 of them won't go anywhere. They won't get another offer.
Do you
And
even do you even as a college coach? Did you even look? And I'm asking this: do most not necessarily you, but do most college coaches even look at like it's 2025? You don't get recruited as a senior or junior anymore. As a college coach, don't you literally got to start following these kids in AAU, eighth and ninth grade?
oh, absolutely. But here's the real sad thing, Alan. That's been going on for a long time, and that was the way it used to be, right? But now, because of the transfer portal, that's what's killing the high school kids and their opportunities. Because this is the pecking order of college recruiting now. The
Okay,
number one place Division I and Division II college coaches recruit, transfer portal. You'd rather take a Division I transfer sixth or seventh man on some high major Division I team's bench than go after an 18-year-old high school kid who's never scored a college basket in his life. When
exactly.
we when we played Nova Southeastern University this year, their starting lineup averaged 24.5 years of age. I'm good friends with Chris Finch, the head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. We coached against each other for many years in Europe before we both came back to the States. I went up to watch the Timberwolves play at the beginning of the year and watch them practice. I was at the first 3 days of their training camp. And we were talking about this. And then after we played Nova, I called Chris and I said, Chris, I said, we played great, but I said, I have a young team this year, a very young team. Nova have 5 starters back. They averaged 24.5 years of age. And Chris looked at me and he said, Billy, that's older than Ant-Man. Anthony Edwards, his
Jeez.
best player, isn't 24 years old.
That's crazy. And a storyline in this tournament is going to be a guy like a Curtis Jones for Iowa State because they don't have Keyshawn Gilbert. So Curtis Jones is one of those rare six guys that are come off the bench. Florida's rare in this that they can go 6 or 7 deep. Most college teams, coach, they don't go 7 deep anymore.
No, if you're playing 8 guys, that in a lot of cases that's a lot because what you usually have is a backup point guard,
Right.
a backup wing that can play the 2 or 3, and a backup post that can play 4 or 5. And those are your 8 guys you rotate every night.
Well, that segues. And I love your answer because it's honest and it's the truth. But that segues to the NCAA tournament. And I was thinking about you today as I was talking to Mark because I love Mark, but there are a few things that you can't say to Mark beyond before 1985 because he's not our age, so to speak, right? Because
Right.
he's seen it on YouTube, but I remember the last time, the SEC with 14 teams of the 16 teams in this tournament. The record, of course, they broke the Big East's record of 11. But the conference with the record for the most Final Four teams in the NCAA tournament is 3, which was the Big East in 1984, coach, when it was St. John's, Villanova, and Georgetown. The team that wasn't Big East was Memphis that year. But it was the last year of 53 teams in the tournament. It was the last year before there wasn't a shot clock. And Ed Pinckney, and I hate to say this, but the entire cocaine-fueled Villanova Wildcats, because if you watch the documentary, they all admit it. Villanova Wildcats defeated Georgetown. The following year, the tournament went to 64. And, the SEC has a chance this year. I don't think they'll do it. But remember those days when the Big East was like that?
I'm going to give you one better that you probably don't know. Okay.
All right.
You asked me, do I remember those days?
Oh, I know you do.
Hey, I was sitting in Rupp Arena when Villanova beat Georgetown. And
Wow.
that was one of the first NCAA Final Fours that I attended. It wasn't the first, but it was one, maybe the third I'd been to.
Still
So
the biggest upset, you think, in tournament history in the finals?
that's hard to say. That's kind of hard to say. But I tell you what, the funny story was I was sitting on like the next to the top row because that was back when it wasn't in these giant stadiums.
Right.
It was Rupp Arena. I was sitting on the second row from the roof of Rupp Arena. I could stand up and touch the roof of Rupp Arena. And I had an empty seat next to me on the aisle, right? And I'm sitting there, sitting there, sitting there. The game's starting, and I'm wondering who's going to sit in this seat next to me. And all of a sudden, I look down the aisle and walking up the aisle to sit in the seat next to me was Denny Crum. And
Louisville.
Denny Crum, who's the head coach at Louisville. And I was like amazed. And I said, Coach Crum, what in the world are you doing sitting up here in the rafters with me? And he said, well, he said, you might think that's the story. He said, but the real story is not that I'm sitting here. The real story is last year I was down there coaching on the court.
he's got a point. All right, Coach, let's start with the number one overall seed in the South region in Auburn. Um, a great coach once told me that talking about comebacks, man, I tell you, comebacks are great, but it's hard to win when you come back because you spent all your energy on the comeback. Who told me that? You remember
That's a very nice saying of mine, I believe.
that? So,
It
Coach,
one
I'm looking at Auburn, and only one time in the past 10 years. Um, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Um, when you look at Auburn, only once in the last 14 years has a team lost its final two games and gone on to become the national champion. Has this schedule that Auburn played, has it finally taken its toll? And how do you see this region?
well, right now, Auburn's in a tough situation. Okay, they're in I think I'm a country music fan,
Oh, I know that.
and so I was thinking about Auburn's shot at winning it all, and I'm like, well, they got one problem facing them because I think if you want to know who I feel is the toughest region in this year's tournament, and
Yeah.
all you have to do is listen to Charlie Daniels because Charlie Daniels sang a song one time, and I distinctly remember the lyrics in it saying, "The South's going to do it again."
Uh
And,
oh. Uh
and
oh.
when I hear that, I'm thinking Auburn has got a really tough. They've got a gauntlet of talent to get through. In for my money, the South region is the toughest region out there, and yet Auburn's the number one overall seed. They threw them in the toughest region.
Yeah.
Now, the second problem they have, you talk about losing two in a row and trying to win it all. Auburn has not been playing well down the stretch over their last 5 games.
No.
They've struggled. They actually almost lost at home just a couple of weeks ago against Arkansas.
Yeah.
Arkansas went there and had them on the ropes at Auburn. So they have not played up to the type of caliber of basketball they played when everybody said they're the best team in the country. They have been struggling lately. Now, so that would lead most people to believe that they could go into this tournament and just bail out right away. But then there was one other thing that bothered me. Tough region, haven't played well down the stretch. And, when you think about it, they've got that gauntlet to go through. Like they're going to beat Alabama State, who had
Yeah.
a incredible win tonight
Over
to
St. Francis.
start the
Yeah, it was a
first
big game.
four. What a great shot at the end of the game, full court pass,
Yeah.
ball falls just by sheer luck into the hands of a guy standing under the bucket and scores in less than 2 seconds to win the game for Alabama State. Now, what do they get out of that? They're going to play Auburn. And I'm sorry, they will get crushed by Auburn. Okay.
Yeah.
But after that, Alan, now you got Auburn's second game for being the number one overall seed. They're going to play either Louisville or Creighton.
Right.
Louisville is probably the best number 8 seed in the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So you're going up against a team that Pat Kelsey, a first-year coach there who's really done an amazing job turning that Louisville Cardinal program around, like a Dusty May has done at Michigan. And he was coaching before that at the College of Charleston, and he was a giant killer, probably the best mid-major in the country at the College of Charleston. Now he's turned around Louisville, made them one of the top teams in the ACC, and that's who Auburn might face next. Or they're going to play Creighton, which is always a perennial giant killer. And Creighton has the 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And what
Greg McDermott, pretty damn good himself too.
he is. But can you imagine that matchup? I want to make sure I get his name right. But that matchup, hey, can you imagine if Auburn do play Creighton, if Creighton knocks off Louisville and Auburn play Creighton, you've got Jonai Broome, who everybody thinks is the best big man in college basketball this year, player of the year in the SEC, going up against Ryan Kalkbrenner. And unless you're a real basketball junkie, you never heard the name,
Yeah.
Ryan Kalkbrenner. But he is the four-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year as a post player. What a matchup of two guys in the paint. So if Louisville wins, you got to feel great about Pat Kelsey and the job he's done. If Creighton wins, you got to look forward to a Jonai Broome, Ryan Kalkbrenner matchup in the paint.
Coach, I'm going to say this, and I'm just going to take it to here. I'm going there. Auburn's not going to the Final Four out of this bracket. Could there be a couple of potential upsets here? Absolutely. If San Diego State gets past North Carolina tonight, I think they could potentially beat Ole Miss. But you're not, Coach. Anytime you you want to talk about feeling old, Coach? How about how about Jace Richardson? I know you know his dad and watching his dad play for Tom Izzo 20 years ago. To
Yep.
me, Coach, this bracket is now they don't shoot the ball lights out, but they play a great style of tournament basketball. And this is your guy, Tom Izzo. And to me, this is a bracket tailor made for Michigan State.
Well, remember, I can come with a little bit of experience there. I
Yes.
have I have coached against Tom Izzo,
Yes.
and I may be the only guy in basketball history that can say I'm 1-0 against Tom
You beat
Izzo.
him, right? Yeah.
But you know what's funny too? When you look at the bracket, I'm looking at Yale, 13th seed Yale, who have dominated the Ivy League for the past few years. They've got a kid. Gotta make sure his name is right here. John Pulikitis,
Okay.
right? And the reason I mentioned John Pulikitis is last year in the first round, Yale knocked out Auburn.
Yes, they
And
did.
and why? John Pulikitis had 28 points. And just this weekend in the Ivy League championship game, Yale and Cornell, Yale dominated the second half because of John Pulikitis and the
Yes.
three down 4 second half threes, put up, I think, 23, 24 for the game, 17 of which I believe came in the second half. And it made me remember he had 28 last year in the first round to upset Auburn. I'm telling you right now, I would not want to be Buzz Williams and Texas A&M because I think Yale, the 13th seed, and there's always a 13, for upset, look no further than the South. Yale over Texas A&M.
I love it, and you know what, Coach? Texas A&M wins my damn bracket every year in the first round. I will not pick Texas A&M. I promise you that. And let me just give everybody a cautionary tale here about the SEC. By the way, listen, only one time in the last 10 years, Coach, has the conference that has sent the most bids or tied for the most bids to this tournament actually won the NCAA championship. So keep this in mind if you're thinking about an all SEC Final Four. Now, truth be told, I got two teams in the Final Four from the SEC in my bracket. So let's go not to the East, Coach, but let's stay on the left side of this bracket. Let's jump the airplane and head out west where the Florida Gators are. Listen, you know, I hate. I've been really down on Florida, just sports in general. I mean, I love the way the football team closed last year. You know, I was a little, golden, but what he's done this year, the three guard offense, moving, Walter Clayton Jr. to point guard. I think he's done a terrific job with this team this year. They go legitimately seven deep. I mean, they had six guys well into double figures and going over the century mark and beating Alabama. You're not comfortable with Florida. I detect it in your voice. Why?
Well, number one, I'll tell you, I agree with you on one thing. Their style of play certainly benefits a team that could win it all.
Right.
They also, besides their three guard offense, they have two bigs that run the floor probably better than any two forwards in the country.
Correct. Yeah.
Their two bigs really get up and down the floor. They're mobile. They just have a enthusiasm about how they play the game, and I like that. I think Florida's starting five have a great mix of three guards and two modern type bigs, mobile bigs that run the floor. So that's the aspect of them I like. Where I have my concerns are they're 30-4. They've had a great season. I thought they kept getting better and better and better, which they have done. But another thing that you look at when you start looking statistics, Alan, is that another great coach, and I'm not going to steal his thunder and quote his name here, but I will tell you what he said to me. You know, you mentioned it's one thing to come back, it's another thing to come back and win, quote. But another great coach told me that he said, Billy, he said, I think it's better for a team to lose in their conference tournament than to win their conference tournament and have to now continue that winning streak through the greatest gauntlet of all, the NCAA tournament. Because for Florida to win the national championship, they got to win 6 more games straight. Now, I know people say, well, coach, they've won 6 games straight and more than 6 games straight this season. That's true. But at no time did they win 6 straight games away from the friendly confines of the O'Connell Center in Gainesville,
That's
Florida.
a good point. That's a good point, Coach. That's a good point. The other thing that scares me about this bracket is, boy, it sure feels like destiny up St. John's with the one of the legends of the game, huh?
You know what? When you look at that part of the bracket, I get really excited, okay? I know all these guys. I've met all these guys. I've had the pleasure of doing some coaching with these guys. But when you look down, and I've got a personal insight, I picked Yale to upset Texas A&M. Well, I got a daughter, Callie, who's at Yale for 2 years right now, doing a fellowship there while she's
Wow.
finally her PhD. So I spoke to Callie today. She's at Yale. The campus is buzzing because they won the Ivy League and they're going dancing this week. And she made me say, you know what? Yale's going to pull off another big upset. Well, when I look at this bracket, the West bracket, my daughter Courtney's in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I
Right.
know a lot of behind the scenes gossip now about the Arkansas Razorbacks, but look at the opening matchup. It can't get any better.
No.
Kansas and Arkansas, right? Kansas,
Self and
Arkansas,
Patino.
two coaches there, Bill Self versus John Calipari,
Yeah,
two Hall of Fame coaches. And whichever one wins is going to then their next game against Rick Pitino, another Hall of Fame coach. You can't get a better bracket for legendary coaching matchups than the West Regional. I think Arkansas are going to beat Kansas. Now, I will say this. If people say, well, how can you pick that? Well, number one, they already have this year. Most people don't realize Arkansas and Kansas played a preseason exhibition game in Bud Walton Arena, one of the best college basketball atmospheres anywhere in the country. They met in Bud Walton Arena in Fayetteville. Arkansas dominated the game, ended up winning 85-69. Now, Kansas was missing three players that night. But of the three guys that were missing, one was pretty important. Their best player overall, Hunter Dickinson. So, okay, Hunter Dickinson is going to be back. He's healthy. He's playing. He'll play in the game in round one in the NCAA tournament against the Razorbacks. But the Razorbacks also announced right after right just before the selections show began on Sunday night, the Razorbacks announced Boogie Fland is cleared medically to return.
that's good news.
Boogie Fland might be the most dynamic freshman basketball player in the country. Cooper Flagg is the best freshman player in the country. Boogie Fland might be the most dynamic. He's an inner city, New York City, unbelievable talent. Kind of reminds me of like the Allen Iverson type guy that
Sure.
just does it all. And
Yeah.
if Boogie's back and Boogie is boogieing, then Kansas are going to be in trouble.
Look, the thing that's got me tore up in this bracket is the potential Sweet 16 matchup between Florida and Maryland. Go Terps. I'm sorry, I live in Florida, but my heart is a turtle. And then the other thing here, I absolutely, I do like Colorado State. If I'm picking, and I don't mean to go 5-12 because I do think we're going to see a 13, maybe something even lower win. But I do like Colorado State here over Penny Hardaway and Memphis in this round one matchup. I do like that. And in fact, apparently so do the gamblers, because when I looked today on the Hard Rock, the Rams were favored in this game. And I was like, well, that's no fun. That's not an upset. Who's your upset? Who's your upset here?
Listen, I'm glad you went there for me. Okay. Again, you brought me on here because of my experience
Right.
and, and my connections and people I know.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going an 11-6 upset in the West with Drake knocking over the 6 seed SEC representative, Missouri. And why is that? Drake is one of the best mid majors in college basketball this year. They're coached by another first year coach, Ben McCullum. And Ben McCullum has been a Division II coach for the rest of his life. He came to Drake from being the head coach at Northwest Missouri State. He won 4 NCAA Division II national championships at Northwest Missouri State. And it gets better than that, Alan. 4 of his starters for his first year Drake team, that is the number 11 seed, the best mid major in America, maybe. 4 of those starters transferred with him from Northwest Missouri State Division II to Drake Division One, and people said, "Oh my God, how can you start Division II players at the Division One level?" He's in the NCAA tournament. He's dancing, and that shows you that there really isn't that much difference between the top of Division Two and the low to mid major Division One programs. So I like the fact that Ben McCullum has won 4 national championships. He knows how to win in the NCAA tournament. He knows how to win big games. And one last thing, even though he's the 11 seed and Missouri is the 6 seed from the mighty SEC, The best player on the floor in that game is going to be a point guard by the name of Bennett Sturts.
Bennett Sturts.
He plays for Drake, and he's a Division II transfer to Drake.
Listen, Bennett Sturts is a fantastic player. Averages 19 points a game, 4 boards, nearly 6 assists, shooting nearly 50% from the floor this year. I love Bennett Sturts. And listen, I'll tell you the thing that Drake does and why they can shoot the ball really well. They play one great style of defense that's very conducive to this time of the year, Coach.
Well, and also here's one more thing. I'm telling you, this is a good upset pick. Missouri has lost 4 of its last 5 games.
Yes,
So,
that's extremely that's true as well. All right, Coach. Let's go to the Midwest, the bottom half of the right side of the bracket in the Midwest, where Houston, Coach, is the number 1 seed. Just real quick, the team that I have coming to me, Coach. This you look at this bracket here. Uh, Gonzaga, Georgia. I mean, Mark Few, 26 years. You look, I mean, they're an 8 seed. I mean, just because it's Gonzaga, I can't imagine them being an 8 seed. You got a tough Purdue team in there. Kentucky's a 3 seed. They're playing really well right now. Tennessee's defense is unbelievable. This is the bracket that's the hardest for me.
well, when I go down the bracket, I start at the top with Houston, as you did, and I'm looking at the coach there again, Kelvin Sampson. And Kelvin Sampson is he's going to be another Hall of Fame coach. He's done a great job throughout his career. He's coached in multiple Final Fours. Believe it or not, this might actually be the one he finally wins. Houston have an unbelievable team. They're a great team, a
Yeah.
very deserved number 1 seed. And I think the bracket might not be that strong. As you look at it, I've got it like this. Houston's going to obviously win their first game over SIU Edwardsville. Their second game is a tough call. The 2 G's from the opposite coast, Gonzaga from the West Coast, Georgia from the East Coast. And Georgia, remember, is coached by Mike White, who
Right.
used to be the Florida. Mike White actually built this Florida team that's doing so well now. He started the wheels turning there to success, and he left to go coach Georgia, and now he's got Georgia a 9th seed. So that's a tough one to pick. And whoever Houston plays, the Zags or the Bulldogs, probably going to be a tough game, but they should win. The next part of the bracket there, Clemson. Brownell has done a great job as the head coach at Clemson. They're now one of the best teams in the ACC. The best basketball year probably in Clemson history. But Alan, they're playing a 12, and 5-12 always seems to be an upset. They're playing a really good McNeese State. And who's the head coach at McNeese State? A guy named by Will Wade.
Uh-huh.
And remember, Will Wade was building a powerhouse at LSU before he got in trouble and released by the Bayou Bengals and got picked up at McNeese State. And he's had McNeese State on the map ever since he got there. So I look at that and say, Will Wade has coached in the SEC, has played against some of the best teams in America. Is Will Wade going to be ready to play the Clemson Tigers? I wouldn't be shocked if McNeese State pulled off an incredible upset over Clemson. And then you're really not going to like what I got to say here, but
Uh-oh.
is always an upset game. Purdue and High Point.
I
Purdue,
love High Point.
Purdue is a little, to me, overrated. High Point are playing right now on top of the world. They're confident. They believe in themselves. And if you saw the end of their conference championship game, oh my God, the student body was behind them. The internet commentary crew was going nuts. but they came back. They came from behind and down the stretch, just dominated play to put themselves in the NCAA tournament, dancing this week in the first round. And I like the wave that High Point are on right now. I know they used to be coached by a good friend of mine, Tubby Smith, who was a former Kentucky head coach. But I tell you, the new coach that's come into High Point and just got a contract extension as well, has done a tremendous job. And I wouldn't be shocked if High Point knocked off Purdue. So those are kind of some of my
Listen,
ups that
High
bracket.
Point is getting more love in North Carolina than the Tar Heels are. I mean, look, the Tar Heels are what, an 11 seed, right? The play-in and the play-in, right? And
Right?
here's High Point at a 13 seed. And for those that don't know, High Point, North Carolina, is the furniture capital of the world. That is where all of the furniture conventions are held, and I've been to a few of them. Trust me. But listen, I mean, they got some shooters. They can shoot the ball. And 29-5, I listen. I like them, Coach. I really do. My
Well,
biggest fear with a team like that is the moment. I just hope the
yes.
moment is too big.
Yes, they haven't played as consistently tough competition as
Right.
Purdue has had. But again, this is one game. You might say High Point Purdue play 10 times, Purdue wins 8 or 9 times. This is one game. So all High Point has to be is ready on the day for the one game. And what do they call it by CBS when it's all said and done? They have to be ready for that one
One
shiny.
moment. There it is. Coach, and just to circle back to Houston real quick, I think that, in the last couple of times Houston has gone in as a high seed into this tournament, we've heard a lot about them. They're kind of a quiet one right now. And I think, you look at a guy like an LJ Cryer, and it depends on, how is the Jawan Roberts ankle doing, and Milos Uzan, if he can continue to play well. I think they can do the one thing, Coach, that they haven't been able to do in tournaments past. They have hit stretches in games in the tournaments in past where they couldn't buy a bucket. I think offensively, this may be the best Houston team that's had a chance to win a national championship. I don't like them to get to the Final Four. I, Coach, it's everything against me to pick the Tennessee Volunteers, but I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for them. Rick Barnes, I like him.
Well, I agree with that. Rick Barnes is another class act, another future Hall of Fame coach. And here's what's funny too. Kelvin Sampson and Rick Barnes are really sort of from the same part of the world, kind of. Rick Barnes is another one of those guys who's, his career skyrocketed as a coach. But Rick played Division II college basketball, or NAIA back in the old day. Rick was at Lenore Ryan College in Hickory, North Carolina. Kelvin Sampson is, we talk about diversity in sport all the time. Kelvin is one of the most diverse guys in college basketball because Kelvin is from Lumberton, North Carolina, and he's an American Indian of American Indian heritage. So, again, when you look at Kelvin and the diversity that he's brought to college basketball over the years and from the area around Lumberton, North Carolina, and then Rick Barnes, Lenore Ryan, Hall of Fame player at Lenore Ryan, Hickory, North Carolina. It's these guys have really they started out on Tobacco Road, and they started out sort of, what you think at the bottom of the barrel, kind of. But look at where they are now as coaches. Their career has climbed and climbed and climbed. They've skyrocketed themselves to the top of college basketball. I kind of feel like you. I think Tennessee and Houston will play for the Midwest Region Championship. I think Tennessee have a good route to get there. Illinois, Kentucky is going to be a big matchup. Illinois might beat Kentucky, and then it would be Tennessee, Illinois, which could be a tough matchup. But I think Rick Barnes will get through that and get to the matchup against Houston. I just don't know if they're good enough to beat Houston on a neutral court. I didn't like how they played in the end of the SEC tournament.
I didn't
So
either.
I think Houston's on a little bit more of a roll, more confident going into the NCAA tournament than the Vols. But hey, if the Vols win and go to the Final Four, I'd love it for one reason. You get to hear that band playing Rocky Top in San Antonio.
Rocky Top in San Antonio. Here with Billy Mims, uh, 273, winning as head coach at Florida Tech, and 9 wins shy of 700 career wins, 7 European championships spread out throughout the continent there. And Coach, let's jump to the East region. And obviously, Duke is the #1 seed. And Coach, I have to ask you, people on their screen right now are taking a look at Cooper Flagg. And Coach, he's going to be the #1 pick in the NBA draft this year. You're a great talent evaluator. Um, is this kid? I mean, when you get guys like Kevin Durant, LeBron James, because this kid scrimmaged. He was one of the few selected to scrimmage with the Olympic team. When is this kid this good?
Well, yes, and a lot of it's because of three things. He's got the size to be good in the NBA. He's got the skill sets to be good in the NBA, and he's got the athleticism to be good in the NBA. So, number one, you look at those things combined, make him an incredible prospect. Number two, I think my friends that coach in the NBA and my friends that scout in the NBA tell me to become an NBA player, to be a great player in the NBA, they look for someone who's elite at something. Okay, that's their saying. He's got to be elite at something. And then I asked them about Cooper Flagg, and they said Cooper Flagg is elite at a lot of things. And so that's why you look at him and feel like this kid's got a really, really bright future in professional basketball in the NBA. But I think it's one more thing. I like that X factor for Cooper Flagg. I think he makes the players around him, Alan, better. Now, saying it's funny because when he went out, everybody's like, oh no, Duke won't win the ACC championship now. Their best player has gone down. And all of a sudden, without him, it looked like Duke stepped to another level. It
Yeah,
looked played better without Cooper Flagg. And that's just not simply the case. There's a lot of factors that go into that kind of surge after your best player goes down with an injury. Other guys step up and they say, hey, we can't lean on Cooper now. We got to make plays. We got to do things. And Duke has a deep, talented team. John Shire has done a great job in replacing Coach K, the legendary Coach Mike Krzyzewski. So all in all, I think Duke are a team that really has a great chance to contend for the NCAA championship
Do
this year.
do you worry? Listen. They're going to be also missing a key defensive contributor, Malik Brown, with that shoulder issue he's got. You got 4 freshmen, and all of them, Coach, at least according to NBAProspects.com, all of them could be drafted in the first round of the NBA draft, which is unbelievable to me. Cooper Flagg, of course, going #1 overall, hopefully to the Washington Wizards. I still call them the Bullets. But do you worry that as you and with if it were Mike Krzyzewski as the head coach, I may not worry about this. John Shire, listen, I mean, yeah, he's a good coach, but he's not Coach K, and you got 4 freshmen, and the deeper you get into this tournament, the more a little bit of experience matters. And you've got some teams in this bracket that have some experience, Coach, experienced players. Do you worry that having 4 freshmen could be an issue?
Well, you look at it back in the day of Michigan and the Fab Five,
Yeah,
right? And look at the run, how well those young kids did on their march through March Madness. And I know your beloved Maryland this year, people are calling them the Crab Five
right.
instead of Fab Five. Um, but Duke has talent. Duke has talent, and they have chemistry. Talent and chemistry can take you a long way. So I think they believe in themselves. Again, as somebody said, when they beat North Carolina, even without Cooper Flag in the ACC championship when they knocked out North Carolina in the ACC tournament. A lot of people said that, if you look at this Duke team, right, this is the first time they've swept the North Carolina Tar Heels in almost 2 decades in the same season. So for them to go through that gauntlet and beat their biggest rival in history and to beat them 3 times in the same season and
Yeah.
has done in a decade or so, I think that says something about their team, their chemistry, and their confidence. So I'm not so worried about that. And again, when I look at that bracket, I think that the East is a fairly easy bracket. Duke's
I
route,
agree.
obviously, they're going to win their first game easily. Then I believe they're going to play Baylor. I think Duke will beat Baylor. Then I think they're going to play Oregon. I think Duke will beat Oregon. So who is Duke going to meet in the East Regional Final to get to the Final Four? I'm going to shock you here. I'm going to really shock you. I like BYU. Okay. I
Wow.
think BYU, Alabama are going to be a tough toss up, a matchup because Alabama, has that SEC pedigree and they've been through that gauntlet. But BYU are playing fantastic basketball this year. And remember, they've already signed maybe the next number one draft choice in the NBA with an offer of like $8 million NIL money. They've got ex NBA ties galore. BYU is starting to climb up the college basketball who's who list, and they're getting into the upper echelon. They might just surprise some people in this tournament. I could see BYU playing Duke for the East Regional Championship.
My goodness gracious, because you're right. You did shock me with that, Coach. That is, listen, uh, just for that take right there is is worth the next 6 nights because now you and I got to bet a lunch on this, Coach. Because I was going to take Shaka Smart and Virginia Commonwealth to beat BYU.
Well, I'll give you a lunch on that one. We will definitely put a lunch bet on that one. I like Shaka, but I'm telling you right now, BYU are well coached.
Okay.
They are athletic. They are talented. They are deep, and they are confident. They've won a lot of big games this season, and I don't look at VCU as being the kind that VCU has had a great season, but they have not played. Again, they haven't played the competition that BYU has played this year.
No.
I think BYU has gone up against some pretty doggone good teams and won. I like, and then if you look at that bracket, I mean, okay, then after that, BYU or VCU would have to play Wisconsin, and look at how Wisconsin did in the
Yeah,
Big.
I wasn't impressed with Wisconsin.
So I'm saying I think either BYU or VCU could beat Wisconsin. Then it's just going to be Alabama standing in their way. Alabama really have a pretty easy path. Robert Morris, St. Mary's. Yeah, Alabama's going to beat those teams. But now, when it gets to the point where they might go toe to toe with BYU to get to the East Region Championship, that could be a fun basketball game to watch.
Yeah, no, you're right. And so, okay, so for me, here's my final four. I know you're not ready to give yours yet, and I'm going to have you back on. I've had you on from the final four before, so maybe we can do that from your hotel room one night. But I'm going to go, and I know people are going to go, wow, Alan, what a stretch. But I'm going to go Duke, Tennessee, Michigan State, and Florida. And I'm going to take the Florida Gators as my national champ, Coach.
I like the sound of that. If you want me to go out on a limb,
Yeah.
I haven't done any research on this. This is all just coming from my gut
Okay.
and from what I've known from watching games this year and following coaches and teams for a long time. So I'll go out on a limb with you here. I'm going to say that I still believe Auburn is going to get to the Final Four.
Okay.
Now, I do have mixed emotions on that because I have them playing Michigan, and Michigan is capable of beating Auburn
Yes, they
because
are.
I love those two twin towers that Dusty May has, two 7-footers that are mobile. Those two guys are going to be NBA superstars. I really like the two 7-footers at Michigan. I love their mobility and I love their skill sets. One of them plays like he's a guard, and the other is a stretch forward, mobile, athletic type big. So, again, the Twin Towers might give Auburn some trouble, but, Auburn do have the best, the player of the year in the SEC in Broom. And I think he's, going to also be in the mix for the player of the year in college basketball. So I think Auburn can get to the Final Four. When you go down to the West Regional, it's tough because I agree with you. Florida should be the team, but I just can't see them winning 4 straight games at this stage after coming off an SEC championship. 4 more tough wins. They're going to have to get past, in my opinion, they're going to have to get past Oklahoma. They're going to have to get past Maryland. Then who are they going to take on? I kind of believe it could be the bottom half of that bracket could be real interesting. It could be St. John's against Florida, or it could be an upset team like Drake or a dark horse like Texas Tech. So Drake, Texas Tech, or St. John's would be sort of my guess. And with a long shot, Arkansas as Florida's opponent. Again, if Boogie Flan comes back healthy, if Adu Thero comes back healthy, if Arkansas are healthy, they could have a long, deep run in this tournament, and it could be the Razorbacks and Gators meeting for the West Regional Championship. So the bottom half of the bracket to me is a crapshoot. It could be anybody.
Look,
Florida are going to go through the top of the bracket pretty easily.
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to go, and a lot of people will say, yeah, well, here's another surprise take. Kevin Willard can Jacoby Gillespie for Maryland. If this kid can quit turning the damn basketball over. Maryland won something like 10 to 12 or 11 to 13 to close the season, but Gillespie's a turnover machine. I mean, Derek Queen is an NBA lottery draft pick. They got Julian Reese. Like you said, they're young and they're good. Um, if they can limit mistakes against Florida, I think they have a very good chance. My sleeper team, my sleeper Final Four team, is the Maryland Terrapins. Do you have a sleeper?
Well, I just told you that if Boogie Flan is healthy, if Adu Thero is healthy, if Arkansas are healthy,
Or
John
Arkansas? Okay,
Calipari,
okay.
John Calipari knows how to get to championships. He knows how to get through this tournament. So, and again, my daughter Courtney works there, and if Arkansas get to the Final Four, Courtney's coming to San Antonio.
Well,
So
of course, he's got to cover the team. The other thing, too, Coach, is I mean, we're talking about this, right? But there's Rick Pitino sitting down there, right? I
yep,
mean,
yep.
St. John's is a really good basketball team. So this, to me, I think the West obviously is the hardest to me. How do you? What did you say was the hardest bracket?
Oh, come on, Charlie Daniels. The South's
The
going to do
South.
it.
That's right. That's right. So you got the
Toughest
South. I
bracket.
like the West.
Look,
We
oh, come
both
on. You look
agree that
at
the
the
East is the
overall.
easiest.
Yes, yes. And then finally,
What's your one big upset? Like
look,
people watching, what's that one big upset?
well, first, let me tell you about the Midwest because I want to give you that because we said, okay, I'm really at a loss for the West right now. It could be Florida or it could
Right,
be anybody in the bottom half of the bracket instead of Florida.
right.
I Drake, Texas Tech, Arkansas, St. John's. for my liking, any one of those four could meet up with Florida to get through the West. I like Auburn in the South. I like Duke in the East. But when you go to the Midwest, I'm going to go again. Just tell you, I got a toss-up Midwest championship final. We said it a minute ago because I like Rocky Top. Tennessee,
Yeah.
Houston, two of my favorite coaches, Rick Barnes, Kelvin Sampson. And I'm torn. I'm really torn. You know why? Because the Final Four is in San Antonio, and Davy Crockett went with a bunch of Tennessee Rebels
I love it.
from Tennessee to San Antonio and died at the Alamo to free Texas. And you know what? I think Rick Barnes might just be the next Davy Crockett at the Alamo. So maybe Tennessee will be my fourth pick for the Final Four.
Well, look, listen. I mean, this year, what they lost by almost 30 to Florida, then turn around 2 weeks later and then beat them by 20. They're the best adjusted defensive team in the country going into the tournament. So, listen, they do the things that, I mean, wouldn't you agree that, I mean, we watched Virginia do it a couple of years ago. If you play really good defense and you get good guard play and you got a good supporting cast, you should do well in this tournament. I mean, is that a pretty common thing?
Well, it is, and you've got to have a little bit of depth.
Yeah.
You can't win this thing just playing 5 or 6 guys. So you got to have 7 or 8 deep to get you through this thing. You can't turn the ball over. You got to have guards that make great decisions, good guard play. You got to shoot the ball well because remember, every one of these games is going to be on a neutral court in a major dome, major stadium. So the backdrops are often difficult for shooters coming in with only, say, one practice in that facility. So I think you need really good shooters, and I think you got to rebound well. So you got to limit teams to one shot. You got to create second and third chances for your team. I like teams that handle the ball well, shoot the ball well, rebound well. Those are the teams I think that have a chance to win it all.
Coach, I tell you, I just absolutely love talking basketball with you, and congratulations on an absolutely stellar career at Florida Tech. And I mean, and just in general, I mean, I'm congratulating you on your past 20 years. It sucked. I'm pissed off at myself. I'm sorry to curse on air like this, but it's just you always want to get down. And now that it's because I'll be honest, I took it for granted. He's always going to be there. He's always going to be there. He's always going to. Well, now you're not, and so I definitely want to know when you're going to win. Where you're going, and I want to be there for 700. And thank you. And before you go, I just want to make sure I'd love to have you jump in. Let me just pull it up here on the screen real quick. But I would absolutely. Well, no, it's going to be Sunday, so let me grab this real quick because I would love to have you. It's almost unfair to be honest with you with what you know about college basketball. But tomorrow on the show, or tomorrow, we don't have a show, but tomorrow we are going to have Jason Landy from the Landy Group on, and he's gonna give us his take on this tournament. Please be sure to log on the BSN's fourth annual 2025 Bracket Challenge, sponsored by the Landy Group of Remax Aerospace Realty. First place $100, second place $50, and if you finish in third, you will get a $50 gift certificate to Jimmy Hula's of Pineda Crossing. And also, you want to know who the defending champion is of that bracket?
Who's that?
That'd be me, Coach.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you said it's you, Alan, because I was a bit worried. I was worried you might say it was going to be Sheriff Wayne Ivey.
No, that is the first bracket challenge I ever won in my life, and I felt guilty as hell about winning it, but not guilty enough to give up the prize money. Again, we want to thank the Landy Group and Remax Aerospace Realty, and Jason Landy will be in studio tomorrow. Coach, Floor is yours. Final thoughts.
Well, again, Alan, I want to thank you for your support for me and my program for the past 2 decades. I want to thank you for your friendship. And I want to thank you for all you've done for promoting sports on the Space Coast throughout Brevard County, especially the youth sports that you have. Unfortunately, the paradise we live in on the Space Coast doesn't have our own television networks. So these kids don't have ABC, NBC, CBS,
Yeah.
Fox, whatever, uh, local news covering their games night in and night out and showing clips and highlights on television for everybody to see. But you have been one of the pillars of promotion for these young kids playing. You've broadcast games, you've covered games, you've done highlights of games, you've brought kids and coaches, local youth coaches, kids, high school programs, high school coaches on your show. Thank you for devoting so much of your time and energy to the young people on the Space Coast who make sports as much fun as it is to go see, to enjoy, to watch. It wouldn't be the same without Alan Zlotowski.
Well, Coach, I appreciate that immensely. Please say hello to your family, your parents, your lovely wife, Lynn, when you get back. Before you go lock down that job, we got to go get an adult Pepsi somewhere, Coach. We love you. Thank you, and have a great night, my friend.
Thank you, Alan.
Yep. Take care, Coach Billy Mims. I tell you, it's just incredible. 20 years. I mean, it just goes like that. And I've actually been a part of broadcasting and covering sports in Brevard County now for over 14, for about 13, 14 years now. And I was talking to Mark about this today, but it's incredible. And Billy is a big reason why I've been able to project myself into this community when I did. And Josh Stanton and Old School Beats. And, you know, there are so many people that you can always thank for careers that spring forward. And Billy and guys like Josh are certainly one of them. So, but you got the good inside advice tonight on your brackets. Now make sure you get in there and play the BSN fourth annual bracket challenge. And before I go, I also want to thank one more time, or congratulate, I should say, one more time. I'm going to show you on the screen. Please share it if you haven't done so yet. EJ Murray, the girls basketball coach of the year, and Logan Keith was our boys basketball coach of the year. So for head coach Billy Mims, I'm Alan Slaughterzinski for the Brevard Sports Network. Have a great